Two things come to our minds when we think about the math teacher turned American financier. A billionaire, who enjoyed the best of luxuries in life. Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender, who controlled a gruesome sex trafficking ring from the United States. He did not act alone. His uncontrolled interests were accompanied by Ghislaine Maxwell, one of Jeffrey Epstein's one-time girlfriends, who turned into an accomplice in his search and lust for vulnerable girls. But were these just allegations against the duo? Can such bizarre accusations be really true? In this video, we will talk about some of those allegations.
Yes. What was the crime of which you were convicted?
Two counts, one soliciting prostitution and procuring a minor for prostitution.
Stay tuned and find out more right here. Before we begin, let us understand where the accused individuals come from. Let's start with none other than Jeffrey Epstein. He was born on January 20, 1953 and began his career in New York City, as a teacher of mathematics at the Dalton School. From there he switched to banking and finance, taking on various roles, while he worked at Bear Stearns. But Epstein wasn't a man who liked to work under authority. He founded his own firm, J. Epstein and Company, in 1982. His firm's services were only focused for assets worth over $1 billion. In a few years, his business bloomed, and his firm became the manager of billions of dollars in client assets. By 1992, Jeffrey became the owner of the largest private residence in Manhattan. He also owned the island of Little St. James, from where he ran his business since 1996, solely for tax purposes. And then, let's talk about his ex-girlfriend, accomplice and business partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, a well-connected British socialite. Maxwell was born on Christmas Day, 1961. She was the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who was a disgraced media giant, last seen on November 4, 1991, on his yacht, sailing past the Canary Islands off Africa. His body was later recovered from the Atlantic Ocean a day later, with the official cause of death written off as a heart attack, combined with accidental drowning. Ghislaine worked for her father until his death in 1991. She then moved to the United States and became a close associate to Jeffrey Epstein. She's also said to have introduced him to people of wealth and power. Maxwell and Epstein dated for a few years. But after they broke things off, she continued to work with him through devious, unspeakable ventures and desires. Now that we know who these people are, let's understand why were they accused. Jeffrey Epstein had money, influence, and friends in high places. But that's not all he wanted. Over the years, he spent millions shaping and becoming the mastermind behind a sex trafficking operation. Let's not forget the fact that he also spent that money to satisfy his lust for young women and girls. The island, owned by Jeffrey Epstein, Little St. James, was not just the perfect spot for the ultimate rich, but also a place where dark secrets would never get out. In a recorded statement, Epstein says,
"On my own island, I can think the thoughts I want to think. I can do the work I want to do. I'm free to explore as I see fit."
But the billionaire took things extremely far when he used his power to sexually abuse thousands of young girls. However, it was the allegations made by Virginia Roberts Giuffre that stirred up the initial legal actions against the criminal masterminds. Today, the mother of three, Mrs. Giuffre claims when she was just 17, she was procured by Maxwell for Epstein's personal desires. She was then trafficked to the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, 3 times. The first time she was trafficked to him was in London, when she was 17. The second time in New York, and the third time in Virgin Islands. Giuffre also says that during the third time, there were other girls on the island who were trafficked for similar favors. However, Prince Andrew has denied these allegations.
I don't think, no, definitely not.
In an interview, he fumbled for words when he claimed to have a condition where he does not sweat.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat.
Which countered Giuffre's version of her experience on the island, which alleged the prince of being extremely sweaty and repelling. Another victim of Jeffrey Epstein's dark desires was Maria Farmer. Miss Farmer was an artist who loved to paint. She was then hired by Jeffrey Epstein, who fell in love with her art and bought her first major work. He then hired her, in 1995, to buy art for his mansion in New York. Things changed for Maria, when in the summer of 1996, Epstein and his partner Ghislaine started violently groping her. Maria later learned her 16-year-old sister, Annie Farmer, was also a victim of Epstein's horrific fetishes. She alleged that Maxwell would take down phone numbers of young girls outside schools and parks. These girls would then turn up at Epstein's house. Maxwell would say they were young girls auditioning to be models. Instead, he used these girls to fulfill his desire for young girls and teenagers. Maria contacted the New York Police Department, even the FBI, but there was no action taken. So though she was the first to report Epstein, there was no initiative by the police. Instead, she quit her career in art after receiving death threats from Maxwell. Courtney Wild alleges she was only 14 when she was sexually abused by the multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Now at 32, it's been 12 whole years that she's been fighting, alongside other victims in court, to seek justice. With all the allegations, it was in 2008 when Epstein was sentenced to prison. He received this sentence after pleading guilty to a felony charge of solicitation of prostitution involving a minor. However, we can hardly call this a sentence for all his crimes, as it was only 18 months in prison, of which he served only 13. Further, he was granted work release, which allowed him to travel to an office outside the jail for 6 days a week. Well, you see, there was a secret plea deal, known as the non-prosecution agreement, that had taken place. The victims were kept in the dark about it. After years of allegations against the malicious duo, the deal was investigated. It was after being arrested and charged with sex trafficking of girls and young women by federal prosecutors in July 2019 that things changed for everyone. The following month after his arrest, reports say that Epstein took his own life in his Manhattan jail cell. The roots of the report are questionable. The victims of Epstein did not let it end there. They went on to tell stories about other rich and powerful people who were involved in this massive racket. One of the names that came up on multiple occasions was that of Ghislaine Maxwell, who was supposedly missing from the public eye ever since Epstein's arrest and death. She is formally charged with 6 counts of illegal acts, and after months of being missing in action, Maxwell was tracked by the FBI to a remote location in New Hampshire. It was July 2, 2020, when they broke through her front gate and made the arrest. The news has put smiles to the faces of women who were abused by Maxwell and Epstein. And this time, though Maxwell has pleaded not guilty, her request for bail was denied. Her trial is now set to begin on July 12, 2021. Maxwell was always the one with the connections, while Epstein had the money. So the question remains, will Maxwell finally reveal the names of all the powerful people that were part of this racket? Or will she take the fall for her ex-boyfriend's dark, gruesome desires?